To our big story this hour, state-owned enterprises have been in the spotlight as the Auditor-General released a report on the financial performance of national and provincial departments. The audit zoomed in on state-owned entities and whether or not they were able to receive clean audits. eNCA's Heidi Giokos is in Pretoria covering the story for us. Good afternoon, Heidi. Overall improvement in audit outcomes for this cycle, according to the AG, although I must say slow. Can you just take us through the key take-homes?
Yes, I think it's going to be important for us to ask the AG to take us through that. Quite a lengthy report that has come through, but definitely some kind of improvement. But we're going to ask the AG to just elaborate for us. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Let's just start off with the overview of the 2020-2021 AG report. Is there some kind of improvement with our national and provincial entities?
Thank you very much, Heidi, and good afternoon to you and the viewers. Yes, there is some good news. A higher number of clean audits, making up of the 1.9 trillion rand budget, they make up 19% of that budget. So when you've got 115 clean audits that are managing public funds in a way that's expected, you really have a good base to drive better service delivery, better delivery on mandate. Another good story is that there are over 70% of the auditees that have credible financial statements, so that if you combine the clean audits and those that have unqualified with findings, you really are saying that 70% of the expenditure budget is essentially sitting in the hands of people who can manage it properly and who can at least account for what they've done with the funds appropriated to them. Another set of good news is that there were 31 audits that could have just become clean audits, so they are very close to clean audits. So with a little bit of effort and sustained effort over the next year, we should be able to get them into the clean audit zone. So a good outcome in terms of the number of clean audits, a good outcome in terms of the number of auditees that are managing their finances appropriately. What we've got to do now is build on that so that we can improve accountability. And I say that in a couple of ways. The first is that the ones with clean audits, we need them to do better. We need them to actually deliver even better. When you've got a provincial treasury getting a clean audit, then you must start to ask that provincial treasury, how are you executing on your mandate as given in law in terms of enforcing proper expenditure management throughout your province? So it's good that you've got a good base internally as an institution. How do we get you to do good? The other one is that if we've got the ones in the yellow zone, how do we get them to start doing better by getting out of the yellow zone, because many of them have been sitting there for a long time. And we say the yellow zone because they've got credible financial statements, but their disciplines around performance information are not solid. Their disciplines around compliance are not solid. So we have to get them out of that space so that they can actually get into the clean audit zone. Many people talk about how clean audits are so difficult to attain. Yes, they're not easy, but they are the key building blocks to sustainable delivery, to integrity of institutions, to transparency and accountability on an ongoing basis, which is the ticket to closing the trust deficit that often exists between government and citizens.
Speak to us about irregular expenditure. It's a lot more this time around. What is it related to, and what have you been able to find?
What we found is that irregular expenditure arises out of non-compliance with laws that are set. So if a department makes decisions and spends money in a way that is outside of the rules that are set, then you end up with a non-compliance, and that becomes irregular. What we found is that for the first time this year, whilst the number is 166 billion rand, which is higher than last year's 109 billion rand, this year much of it relates to matters other than compliance. So the NSFAS, the Student Financial Aid Scheme, they had 77.5 billion rand of irregular expenditure, which was not procurement related. It was to deal with matters around the bursary regulations and compliance therewith, which is a good story in that you know what to fix and you can fix it. What we also found, though, is that even though you've got 166 billion rand, we know the number could be higher, because you've got 88 auditees who couldn't confirm the completeness of the irregular expenditure that they disclosed. And what that tells us is that the accountability mechanisms within those institutions do not work. They don't have strong controls to prevent irregular expenditure, to detect it when it does happen, to report it as what they're supposed to do in law, and then to follow it up so that there are consequences, and that over time you reduce the vulnerability of the system to non-compliance. And it's important that we do that because these rules are there to help us achieve our goals in terms of how public administration should work in a way that is, yes, within the rules, in a way that is about making sure that we don't spend in areas that we're not supposed to spend, and we spend in a way that's consistent with the policies of this government.
I know we're running out of time, but speak to us about the 3 departments that have the worst financial status. I know the Department of Health is one of them. Tell us why.
We flagged the Department of Health because we are concerned about the fact that they have financial health vulnerabilities. And much of it is because for many years, many of them are now sitting in the unqualified zone, right? So they've been able to present financial statements that are credible after being supported by auditors to get there, right? So because their disciplines are not firm, but at least we can report credible financial statements. But for many years, they've lost money because they either don't procure in a way that preserves funds, that gives them optimal value for what they're spending. They also don't report faithfully on how they are delivering on their service delivery mandate. This is quite important to do because if they don't get those basic disciplines right, they're going to continue to lose money by spending it inappropriately, but they're also going to struggle to demonstrate how they have delivered on the key programs that are supposed to deliver on the aspirations set out in the National Development Plan and in the targets set out in the medium-term strategic framework and the 7 priorities of government. So we have to get those key disciplines at the point of care happening in a way that's going to allow us to minimize loss and to deliver quality services as best as we can.
I know I said the last question was the last one, but this is a very important report. And I think with many South Africans watching this and trying to understand what's the importance and significance of these entities getting a clean audit and being in good financial standing, at the end of the day, it goes back to the citizens. It goes back to service delivery, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So whilst our audits don't confirm that services have been delivered, our audits confirm that an institution is being well managed and is poised to deliver services in a way that's efficient, that's sustainable, and in a way that ultimately meets the expectations of citizens.
Great. Thank you so much. We do appreciate it. That's the Auditor-General Tsakani Maluleke. A very important a report coming out, Mfundo, and I think it's also important to highlight that some of these SOE state-owned entities have not been able to provide financial statements. For example, Denel, we also know SAA and SA Express. The 2 airlines, the 2 government airlines have also been in quite a difficult position for years now, not being able to provide those financial statements. And as you heard, at the end of the day, it's imperative for that to happen so that audits can take place.
No, most certainly concerning, Heidi, but thank you very much for that. That's Heidi Giokos in Pretoria for us. Now, time for a